John Denver seemed like the simplest man in American music. Flannel shirt, round glasses, songs about mountains and open roads. But the real story underneath that wholesome image is one most people have never fully pieced together. A father who set airspeed records but couldn't say "I love you." A bedroom destroyed with a chainsaw. A seat on the space shuttle he came terrifyingly close to filling. And a final flight that lasted less than an hour, ending just 15 days after he bought the plane. None of those details seem to belong to the same person. But they all do. He was born Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. on New Year's Eve, 1943, in Roswell, New Mexico. His father, known as Dutch, was a decorated Air Force pilot who reportedly set 3 international speed records in a supersonic bomber and earned a place in the Air Force Hall of Fame. By most accounts, Dutch was a man more comfortable in a cockpit than at a kitchen table. The family moved so often that young John had attended schools across 5 different states before most kids had found a best friend. The one constant in his life was a Gibson guitar his grandmother gave him at 11, the only thing that never got packed into a moving truck. When he eventually headed to Los Angeles with that guitar, and almost no money, nobody was interested. He changed his name to Denver, after the Colorado city he loved, partly because, as he was told, Deutschendorf would never fit on a marquee. He quietly set aside the name his father had spent a career building. In 1965, he beat out roughly 250 other singers to join the Mitchell Trio. Around the same time, he wrote a quiet song he initially called "Babe, I Hate to Go," gifted it to friends at Christmas, and thought little of it. It eventually reached Peter, Paul, and Mary, who renamed it "Leaving on a Jet Plane," and turned it into the only #1 hit of their entire career. His own first 3 solo albums flopped. Then came the avalanche: Rocky Mountain High, Sunshine on My Shoulders, Annie's Song, written in 10 minutes on a ski lift after a rough patch in his first marriage. He performed at the White House, starred in a film with George Burns, and filled arenas worldwide. From the outside, it looked like a man who had everything he'd ever wanted. Inside, according to his own autobiography, it was more complicated. He admitted to repeated affairs. His first marriage ended in 1982, and in a moment, he later described himself with evident embarrassment. He returned home with a chainsaw and destroyed furniture, including the bed, straight down the middle. His second marriage, to a singer he met while on tour, ended in divorce in 1993 after a custody battle that reportedly cost over $3 million in legal fees. On the night that divorce became final, he was arrested for drunk driving. He also spent years genuinely trying to reach space, sat on NASA advisory boards, passed physical and psychological evaluations, and believed, by his own account, that he was the leading candidate to become the first civilian aboard the space shuttle. That seat went instead to teacher Krista McAuliffe. She died when Challenger broke apart 73 seconds after launch in January 1986. On October 12, 1997, 15 days after purchasing an experimental kit-built aircraft with a known fuel valve problem, Denver took off from California's Monterey Peninsula. When the right fuel tank ran dry mid-flight, reaching the awkwardly positioned valve required twisting his body away from the controls. The plane yawed sharply and plunged into Monterey Bay. Toxicology found no alcohol or drugs in his system. He was 53 years old. Colorado lowered its flags. Thousands gathered in Aspen under an open sky to say goodbye. Months later, he won his only competitive Grammy for a children's album recorded that same summer, announced at a ceremony he never lived to attend. If this story surprised you, hit like and subscribe. There's so much more history like this waiting to be told.